Hi there, it's Lachlan Callish here from the Division of Learning and Teaching, and this short clip is going to have a look at the idea of getting video out of Zoom and into a safer or more permanent location for storage. So look, I'm going to share my screen. And what I'm looking at here is the back end of my Zoom account, which is at charlessturt.zoom.us. When we sign into the Zoom portal and look in our recordings folder, you may be aware that all the recordings on the CSU Zoom account have a limit of 1 year, 365 days from the time that you make the recording. This can be problematic for people wanting their materials to last for longer or to be visible for indefinitely. We don't have any control in and around what happens with the Zoom recordings if we leave them in Zoom, so in the cloud, for example, which means that we have to get them out of Zoom, out of our recordings folder. We've got to download a copy and save it in a place that's more sustainable. And the solution we have for that is using CSU Replay, Panopto. So that is the tool that CSU has for video storage. It's also used for lecture capture, etc., for those of you that deliver in face-to-face spaces. And each of us has a Panopto account that we can save video into. So what I'm going to do here is look at getting a video out of Zoom from our recordings folder, and then downloading that, putting it into Panopto, which is pretty quick and easy, and then just look at the difference between storing it within a subject site, which is fine as long as that subject site is valid, versus storing it in your own personal home folder in Panopto. All right, so look, the first thing is we've made a recording in Zoom. That's happened. Now the recording has ended up here in our recordings folder, and we're going to download that. So the way that we can do that is we can go into the detail for the recording, and depending on your own profile settings, you're going to have the recording available in different formats, whether it's using capturing the speaker view in Zoom, so the speaker talking and shared screens, etc., or a gallery view that shows all of your audience. The number of recordings that you have in here when you click on it will depend on your own profile settings. For today, I have a copy of a shared screen with speaker view. This is the detail that I have with my Zoom recording. I'm able to download the whole thing, the one file, the 56 minutes, or I can actually get individual components. If I just wanted the transcript downloaded, or the chat file, or the audio file, or just the video by itself, I can get each of those pieces from here. So clicking on download will get me all 4 files, or I can go to each of the individual ones underneath, move across to the right, and there's my individual download button, or I can get a link to that individual component or delete it. So what I'm going to do here is download the speaker view and shared screen of this particular video file. I'm going to download that, 241 megabytes. It's downloading into my downloads folder, presumably. I'll open that up in the folder. So I have a video file, and you'll see that Zoom labels it in quite a long and not particularly helpful way, although it does tell me the resolution there, 1920 by 1080. Left clicking in there once will allow me to rename it something a little more helpful. So this happened to be a PD session that I ran on Turnitin. Maybe I'll give it a date. So the 28th, the 2nd, 23, that'll do. So now I've got a file name that's at least indicative for me what it is, but I've saved it locally. This one's in my downloads folder. So there's our first step. I've got a file downloaded locally out of Zoom. Next step is I've got to figure out where I'm going to put it. And I've got 2 options here. One of them being a subject site. In this case, I've got an org site, but it's exactly the same principle. If you have the CSU Replay tool inside your subject site, you can go into the replay folder, click on the create button. Since we're not making the video, all we're doing is uploading it or storing it. We click on upload media. It then has this dialog in place. You can either browse for the file by clicking on here or drag and drop. I'm going to drag and drop. Here's my video, 241 megabytes. It uploads into the subject site folder for Panopto. Pretty quick to upload, then it will process the video. But even once it's there, you can in fact start getting a few details from there, such as a link. It's worth actually clicking on that share button to get an idea of what these videos look like in Panopto, with a heads up being, by default, it's going to let people within that subject site view or work on the video depending on their access to the site. So for example, where it says creator, that's talking about teachers, instructors, full staff, basically non-students. And then underneath, viewer, that's getting at students in this space will be given view rights for this video. This is the default setting for videos inside a Panopto folder in a subject site. If we want to change this, click on the access video settings underneath, click on change, and you can switch the video to public. And then at that point, anyone who you give the link to this video, which leads us to the link being available underneath, you can click on that, copy the link, and then send it to people. They'll be able to watch that video stored in Panopto, and fairly good chance that will not be deleted indefinitely. So that's one way to get a video stored in Panopto. What we might actually do, if I close this dialog, you'll see that inside my folder now, it's already refreshed and showing me a thumbnail for the video. It'll actually give you a picture from within your recording once the processing has moved along a bit, but by default, you get this kind of gray thing to begin with. But you can certainly change name and the share settings, etc., not to mention edit the video from within this folder. So that's the process of getting it out of Zoom, putting it within a Panopto folder inside a subject site. Now, the limitation that we have here is to do with the subject site. If your subject site's not available after 12 months, 18 months, whatever, then we're back at square one in terms of the video not being available anymore. It's still going to be sitting there somewhere in the back and the link would still be okay, but we don't have students anymore in that subject site because it's now from a previous session. So a more sustainable solution potentially is to use your own personal Panopto folder to store the videos until you decide where you want to put them. And to get to that, we need to go into the Panopto backend, which is located at csu.au.panopto.com. And that you'll probably need to sign in with your work login to get there. But this will be a copy of every video that you have access to, share access to, but you also have access to creating more folders that will sit there forever. And you can store your videos in there. So if we click on home, for example, you've got your own folder, the My folder here with a star, and you can upload videos directly into there, or you can create subfolders in here by, again, clicking. You can right click up here where it's got add folder. You can add individual subject folders if you want, but this is a permanent backup solution outside of Interact 2. So that's the difference between looking at a subject site Panopto folder, which is integrated with i2, but could disappear, and your actual Panopto backend folder, where you can create as many of these as you like, and at least you'll know where all those recordings are going. So you can certainly do that and upload your video in here somewhere. So if I was calling this PD video backups, for example, I'll make that folder. I can go into that folder. There's nothing in there at the moment. The process is the same as we had with the subject site, which is hit the create button, upload media, drag your video in. Okay, so we've just found a way to back up videos in two different locations, one in your subject site, if that's what you want. Second one being in the Panopto backend in your own home folder, in your own personal folder that you may then have subfolders for for your own specific purposes. So you can do that. Same thing. This is processing now. If I close the box, the thumbnail's there already. I can click on the share button and get those share settings. Who can access this? Remember, switch it to public if you want just to be able to share the link and give it to people. And then you can distribute links to that video indefinitely. So that's the process of getting videos out of Zoom and into a more permanent, sustainable location if you need to do so. Otherwise, you've got 365 days looking at our recordings from the day that it's made to decide whether or not that video is going to have value beyond that point. Otherwise, it will get automatically deleted. So there you have it. That's how we get our videos out of Zoom and somewhere else. Thank you very much. We'll see you in the next one.